first couple of questions are easy. A tiger, an elephant, a giraffe, you know. They couldn't come close to answering any of those questions.
Look, everybody, I know that I spend a lot of time talking about the mainstream media, and part of that is the fact that I want to juxtapose what I do and those in my cohort here on YouTube and on Facebook, the people in my space, in my genre. I want to juxtapose what we do in the good work, the hard work, the decent work, the integrity-fueled work that we do. And I want to separate myself from mainstream media, from corporate media, from media that has an absolute agenda and the point of view of maintaining power. I talk about it a lot. But right now, it is more stark than ever, that juxtaposition. I've been watching CNN this morning. It is right now Tuesday morning in Japan. You're going to be watching this in Tuesday morning in several hours in the United States. And I'm watching CNN for the evening yesterday for you. I'm in the future. And CNN is just running segment after segment after segment about this particular topic, about Donald Trump talking about a third term, with chyrons that read, trolling? Is he trolling? Is he just trying to own the libs? This is not the question we should be asking. These are not the perspectives we should be taking when the President of the United States of America is speaking openly about defying the Constitution of the United States. Need I remind you what the 22nd Amendment of the Constitution says? It says no person shall be elected to the office of president more than twice, and no person who has held the office of president or acted as president for more than 2 years of a term to which another person or some other person was elected president shall be elected to the office of president more than once. But this article shall not apply to any person holding the office of president when the article was proposed by Congress, and shall not prevent any person who may be holding the office of president or acting as president during the term within which this article becomes operative for holding the office of president or acting president during the remainder of such a term. It is very clear that Donald Trump is not qualified. He is constitutionally disqualified from attaining a third term in office. Point blank. So for the media to be acting as though, oh, he's just a jokester, he's just kidding y'all, he's just trolling us. One, that's not his job. Two, they are missing the moment with Anderson Cooper having David Urban on and the lady from The View, Farrah Griffin, whatever, and Van Jones, the three mooks contemplating whether Donald Trump is joking or not. Even if he is, it's not the point. Yesterday on Air Force One, if you missed this, he's being asked by a gaggle of reporters about his health, about running for a third term, and he melds the two. In this video, we're going to talk about what he said. I'm going to play what he said, and we're going to address the diminishment in his mental ability, but also the fact that it's just abject disrespect for the Constitution and the 26th Amendment that I just read to you.
They are good people.
You said that for 2028, they're very good people.
Well, we have great people. I don't have to get into that, but we have one of them standing right here. We have JD, obviously. The vice president is great. I think Marco's great. I think, I'm not sure if anybody would run against us. I think if they ever formed a group, it would be unstoppable. I really do. I believe that. I would love to do it. I have my best numbers ever. It's very terrible. I have my best numbers. If you read it, am I not ruling it out? I mean, you'll have to tell me. All I can tell you is that we have a great group of people, which they don't. They have Jasmine Crockett, a low IQ person. They have AOC's low IQ. You give her an IQ test, have her pass like the exams that I decided to take when I was at Walter Reed. Those are very hard, they're really aptitude tests, I guess, in a certain way, but they're cognitive tests. Let AOC go against Trump. Let Jasmine go against Trump. I don't think Jasmine, the first couple of questions are easy. A tiger, an elephant, a giraffe, you get up to about 5 or 6, and then when you get up to 10 and 20 and 25, they couldn't come close to answering any of those questions.
All right. There's two things here. One, when the reporter asks about him not ruling it out, and he says, you'll have to tell me. You'll have to tell me whether I'm going to rule it out. That seems to me to be a challenge. That seems to me to be to him contemplating or communicating that you're going to have to stop me. As he pits Marco Rubio and J.D. Vance, two of the biggest ass kisses in the administration, against one another, while saying he doesn't rule it out that he would run, while lying about his poll numbers, that they're the greatest ever. Hours after this, he jumped on Truth Social and was tweeting about or posting about his poll numbers being the greatest they've ever been, which just lets you know how insecure about those poll numbers he is. But talking about Jasmine Crockett and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez being low IQ, of course he's attacking women of color. Of course our white supremacist president is endeavoring that. But the exam that he acts like he passed with flying colors is this right here. And let's one more time go through the Montreal Cognitive Assessment, which is not an IQ. It is not an aptitude test. This is an exam that is administered to people in diminishing cognitive states. It's people who are at the precipice of or in the throes of dementia and Alzheimer's. It's not given to healthy people. I myself have never clinically been administered this test. We've done it on the podcast where Brittany Page has asked me the questions just to show the audience what kind of a test it is. But there's no need for me to take this test. There's no need for me to claim that I passed it with flying colors or aced it like it's the SAT or the GRE or the LSAT. It is not that. There are pictures of a horse and a tiger and a duck. This is not something you pass with flying colors and then brag about. Further, let me say this. Have you gone through life, when you've gone through life, obviously you've gone through life, but have you had people in your life that were the weak people who acted tough? Truly smart people don't brag about how smart they are, trying to convince others of their intellect because they're smart and secure in it. Tough guys who are adept at hand-to-hand combat don't go around acting like a tough guy because they don't need to. They're a tough guy. The same thing goes here. Wildly wealthy people don't go around talking about how rich they are because they're rich. They don't need to convince anybody of it. And Donald Trump is weak, and all of this braggadocio leads us, it should lead you to understand fully that that's what we're dealing with here. But let's go through this. They start the test and they want a visuospatial executive understanding from 1 to A to 2 to B to 3 to C to 4. You get the picture. They want you to name what these animals are. They give you a series of words. Remember when he said what the words were: man, woman, TV, camera, whatever. And then later on in the test, they ask again. This is not an aptitude test. This is not an IQ test. And the fact that he thinks it is should be alarming to us all. This goes beyond the fact that he is an autocratic idiot who wants to have a third term. This is someone who is not capable, not just not qualified. He is not able to do the job. He's meeting with world leaders probably 2 miles from where I'm sitting in my hotel room in Tokyo right now. And this is who our representative is on a global stage. A man who's claiming to solve wars, ending multiple wars, nearly a dozen wars that didn't exist. He's inventing conflicts that he solved and then whining and crying that he's not getting the Nobel Peace Prize. And Republicans, as you watched in that clip, are gleeful. Marco Rubio giggling like a teenage girl about what the dear leader. He is a high priest in the cult of Donald Trump. Donald Trump, he's so funny. He's saying funny things, disrespecting the oath to the Constitution that he took on multiple occasions. And Republicans are here for it. They're celebrating this. They have allowed him to take over their party and destroy the country. He is endeavoring to create power for himself that is unmatched and extra constitutional. And unless we step up, stand up, organize, get to the polls during the midterms, and switch the majority in the House of Representatives, we're going to be in for it and maybe done for. Anyway, I would love your opinion about all of this. Did you watch this clip? I'm getting very tired of having to talk about this all the time. It would be a joyful event to have normal policy analysis rather than having to drudge through this nonsense on a daily basis.
The big question is what prompted his MRI? So what symptoms were they concerned about? What particular type of MRI was performed? Was it a brain MRI?
You know how for several months I've been talking about the fact that Donald Trump likely isn't going to survive the next 12 months or so of this term. That's just my guess. I'm just taking a stab in the dark. I have no medical qualifications to make that assessment. I just see what I see, and based on the experience and the life I've lived, I make that call. We'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. But over the events of the last few days have led me to believe that maybe I am correct about that assessment. Donald Trump has now revealed to the press that he had a recent MRI. No transparency, no reason for it. He acts like it's a routine exam. That's not what MRIs are given for. I have MRIs on a regular basis because I'm a cancer survivor. I had colon cancer 3 years ago, and I'm still in the process of tapering down how many colonoscopies I have in a year and how many CAT scans or MRIs that I have. That's the normal course as a scan measure to make sure that the cancer doesn't come back. Why is Donald Trump having MRIs? That is the question. I have two clips for you. One is when he's talking about the MRI while acting like he's being so transparent and everybody has all the records. That's a total lie. It's total gaslighting on his part. And the other is a clip from Jonathan Reiner, who is a doctor, an MD, and he's a CNN contributor. And he was asked specifically about this. And what he says hits the nail right on the head. About transparency, about what we don't know. And there are so many questions about the health of the President of the United States, which, by the way, I always get comments when I talk about Donald Trump's health, and it's nobody's business. It's none of your business how healthy the president is. It's Donald Trump's own personal information. That is untrue, and you should not think that to be the case. Donald Trump owes the American people transparency relative to his health, so we don't end up in another situation like we had in this country with Woodrow Wilson, who was catatonic. He was in a coma, and his wife was running the country, currying documents back and forth to Congress while marionetting Wilson in the White House bed, who was, again, not the functional president of the United States. And it took a generation or so for us to come up with the 25th Amendment of the Constitution, which dealt with succession in the case of a president not being able to follow through on the duties. So here's Donald Trump on Air Force One being asked about this and giving lie after lie and not being transparent about his health, talking about his recent MRI that should alarm us all.
The readout for Walter Reed mentioned advanced medical imaging. Did you get an MRI? Can you tell us what that was?
I did. I got an MRI. It was perfect. Yeah. I mean, I gave you the full results. We had an MRI, and in the machine, the whole thing,
Yeah.
and it was perfect. Yeah.
Did you say what in particular they were?
You could ask the doctors. In fact, we have doctors traveling with us, but I think they gave you a very conclusive. Nobody has ever given you reports like I gave you. And if I didn't think it was going to be good, either I would let you know negatively, I wouldn't run, I'd do something. But the doctor said some of the best reports for the age, some of the best reports they've ever seen.
Those things don't line up. What's the reason for the scan? I believe that's Peter Doocy, the wonder Nepo baby over at Fox News, Steve Doocy, the morning shock jock TV host. It's his son asking the question. Donald Trump doesn't answer the question while saying, well, you could ask the doctors. Doctors can't give that information. They're not able to just, of their own accord, based on the question from a reporter, give Donald Trump's personal health information, and he knows that. So he just says, well, you can ask the doctors, while not giving the information. We have a right to know as Americans the health of our president, the health of our leaders. It is something that is owed to us. For him to say that you can ask the doctors and then say, nobody has given you reports like I have given you. You're not giving us reports, Donald Trump. You're a liar. You're concealing from the American public vital information about your health struggles that you're clearly having right now. Because if you weren't having health struggles, if there weren't alarm bells in your physician staff, in their heads and with their expertise, you wouldn't be having MRIs. MRIs are not preventative. MRIs are to categorize what is happening currently with your health, to find a tumor or some other kind of ailment. That is the problem here. Now, again, Jonathan Reiner, he's an MD. He works for CNN as a consultant or a contributor, and he was asked by Sarah Seidner about this, and I think his comments are very, very eye-opening.
Joining me now, CNN medical analyst, Dr. Jonathan Reiner. Most of us do not get an MRI as part of a normal physical. Aren't they typically used to detect things like strokes and aneurysms and tumors? I mean, do you have any clues as to why the president would have gotten an MRI?
You're right, Sarah. It's not part of a routine screening examination. There's been really a lack of candor coming from the White House about this. When they announced that the president would visit Walter Reed at the beginning of this month, they initially said it was for his annual checkup. But when they were reminded that that's not due until April, they said, okay, it's for a routine semi-annual checkup. But just physical exams are done in the White House. The White House has a prodigious testing capacity. And the president and vice president go to Walter Reed for testing that is not available at the White House, something like a CT or, as we now hear, an MRI. The big question is, what prompted his MRI? So what symptoms were they concerned about? What particular type of MRI was performed? Was it a brain MRI? Was it a cardiac MRI? Was it an MRI of his spine, of his prostate? What prompted a concern that would take him in a relatively unscheduled way to Walter Reed for this testing? Why didn't they tell us that? Why didn't they disclose that he was tested when Dr. Barbarella issued his report after the president's visit? And now, why won't they tell us exactly what was tested, why the testing was performed, and the results? I think without that, then there's really no trust.
That's it. Something prompted the test. What prompted the test? What prompted the need, the necessity for an MRI for our 80-year-old ailing, failing cognitively president of the United States? What was it? We are owed that information. There is zero transparency, and where there is zero transparency, there is zero trust to be had. And this goes, if you are going to be giving Donald Trump the benefit of the doubt, and this goes for everybody, even the MAGA trolls in my audience, why would we give the benefit of the doubt to the guy who said that they weren't going to touch the East Wing, that they were going to build the palatial ballroom next to it, and then now there is no more East Wing of the White House? He's a liar about everything, big and small. He is a liar. He's acting as though he got a clean bill of health, which should lead you to believe, based on everything we know about Donald Trump, that he is not in tip-top shape. There is something gravely, seriously wrong in his health. Not just in his brain health, his mental health, his cognitive state, but his physical health as well. I would love to know what you think about this. Let's have a conversation in the comments, whether that be over on Facebook or on YouTube. You can also call the voicemail line, 714-576-4054. And of course, as always, you can email me daily@dollemore.com.
You said this morning that this was, quote, the most successful ad in the history of North America. Is the additional 10% tariff on Canadians also part of that success?
We got a serious problem over at CNN. CNN used to be kind of my go-to middle-of-the-road news that I could rely upon for decent analysis, but actual accurate reporting. And that is just not the case anymore. The organization has changed hands. They have new leadership. And it's through that leadership where everybody in the higher echelons of power and influence in the organization are vying to keep their jobs. And by the way they're vying to keep their jobs is ass-kissing Donald Trump. From Mark Thompson, who I'm going to talk about next, to Jake Tapper, who in this clip is attacking the premier, which is like a governor in Canada, Doug Ford, the premier of Ontario. He's a conservative, not conservative as in like a Republican, although they're Republican. The Conservative Party in Canada is kind of like what the Republican Party was 30 years ago in the United States, or even beyond, 40 years ago in the United States. That's the kind of conservative they are. And Doug Ford, I talked about it yesterday, ran the commercial that included the words of Ronald Reagan to kind of sound the alarm and educate Americans about what Ronald Reagan believed about tariffs. They ran an accurate ad that got like billions of imprints online, very successful. And Jake Tapper is interviewing Doug Ford and pretty much is just acting as though he's a Donald Trump surrogate. He's on Team Donald Trump. He wants to attack Doug Ford for this effort. I have two clips here. We're going to kind of go in reverse order because the most egregious one I want to play for you first, and it's Jake Tapper directly asking this Canadian politician, categorizing making the ad as stirring the pot. The question is, do you regret stirring the pot, that's a presupposition that the pot was stirred, and making things harder for your fellow Canadians? This is a question that you would expect from a Pete Hegseth type, a Caroline Levitt type, a Stephen Miller type, not from an actual bona fide legitimate journalist, which Jake Tapper is no longer. Watch this, and then we'll talk about it on the other side.
Canada's unemployment rate, as I'm sure I don't need to tell you, is now at its highest point in 9 years. Do you have any regrets about stirring the pot, possibly making things harder on your fellow Canadians due to this retaliation from President Trump?
No, I don't believe so. The person that started this whole thing around the world, not just with Canada, is President Trump. And the American people are finally feeling the effects of tariffs. And it's going to continue. The more tariffs, it's more of a tax on Americans and less jobs for America. If anyone reads into many speeches Ronald Reagan did after the free trade agreement with Canada with former Prime Minister Brian Mulroney, which is no longer with us. He was one of my mentors, and he created more jobs, not only in Canada, but also in the U.S. than we've ever seen. Again, protectionism does not work. We want to create more jobs in the U.S., more jobs in Canada. I believe in the AmCan Fortress, which is the American-Canadian Fortress. And let's be the wealthiest, richest, safest two countries in the entire world. We have so much to offer the Americans that we give them, no matter if it's our oil or our uranium or our potash that keeps your agriculture sector, or nickel, high-grade nickel from Ontario. And the auto sector, they're losing billions of dollars every year now because of these tariffs.
That's a whole lot of assuming and making presuppositions about the state of things right now. Jake Tapper is working in service to Donald Trump. The question would be why? Is he trying to keep his job, or has he always been this closeted conservative type? We know that he had a show, like Scandal Makers type of show that he put out. I think they maybe are in multiple seasons now, where he admitted that he was a very good friend of Mark Sanford, the Republican former governor of South Carolina. And it was kind of in that moment that I realized Jake Tapper isn't this middle-of-the-road journalist. He pals around with some of the worst Republicans. He's more of a Brett Baer character from Fox News than he is a decent and good objective journalist. And we witnessed that when he wrote the book, his hit piece on Joe Biden. Now he's silent about the cognition of Donald Trump, but made, who knows, untold hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars with Alex Thompson from from Axios writing that hit piece on Joe Biden. So CNN is really just not to be trusted. They've got a few characters over there. I don't mean characters as a pejorative, but they've got a few people who do very good work in the organization. Jake Tapper is just not one of them. He is absolutely a hack who is sitting here attacking for the benefit of Donald Trump, for the benefit of the GOP, working in service to their agenda by attacking Doug Ford. And this is actually how the interview started. And it also contains an attack where he's mocking or calling into question the success of that particular ad about the tariffs, containing the words, the audio of Ronald Reagan from a radio address. And he asks him, if it was so successful, is the addition of 10% tariffs, is that also a success? Kind of just conceding that the attacks of Donald Trump are just the natural course of action and that Doug Ford looks like he brought it on himself.
Sir, so you said this morning that this was, quote, the most successful ad in the history of North America. Is the additional 10% tariff on Canadians also part of that success?
Well, first of all, Jake, thanks for having me on. I start off every interviewing saying that Canadians love Americans. I love America. I love Americans. I lived there for 20 years. And that my intention was to bring this to the American people and tell them that tariffs, protectionism does not work. Ronald Reagan was a free trader, the greatest president, in my opinion, ever. And we wanted to get the message out. And did the message get out? 100%. It had 11.4 billion with a B impressions. We talk in the media, but views around the world. And again, we just want to make sure that we work side by side with our closest friends and allies. A tariff on Canada is a tax on Americans. President Trump ran on creating more jobs. We've seen 5 consecutive months, manufacturing jobs are down. We've seen inflation go up. That's not what President Trump ran on. And we want to be the solution. And the way we get back on track is sign a deal with your largest #1 customer in the world, and that's Canada.
It's sad when we have a Canadian politician, a conservative Canadian politician in Doug Ford, again, the premier of Ontario, the province of Ontario. And he's the one communicating the economic situation. He's the one talking about the detriment of American policy, not just on Canadians and Ontario itself, but on Americans, on American jobs, on the American economy, that people are feeling the pinch and the hurt right now. Not Donald Trump and his cronies, not his pals, not the oligarch class in the United States, not them. They're fine. They're billionaires. They're going to remain fine. It's people who work hard jobs. It's the working class, the blue collar segment of America, the poor, the working poor in America who are feeling it. But who does Jake Tapper take up for? The billionaires. Who does Jake Tapper defend? Donald Trump. Who does he assume that this attack, the increased tariff, that you should just have expected it? You brought this on yourself, Doug Ford. That is the framing of the question. That is the problem. I don't know. Oh, how the mighty have fallen, I guess. We'll end it there. I would solicit your conversation. We can have it in the comments below the video, wherever you're watching it. Wait. I thought no Americans cared about this story. What do you mean polls show that Americans disapprove of it? So speaking of CNN and the leadership over there and the rightward swing, the cozying up to, the cuddling up to, the lathering up of Donald Trump and this fascist regime, it seems that they are in self-protection mode, at least the high-ups, at least the president, the chief now of CNN, and some of the top anchors like Jake Tapper are in cover your ass mode, CYA. There's reporting that Mark Thompson, the new CNN chief, I'm going to read this headline and a little bit of this article from Status, which is an independent outlet that does reporting, and that Mark Thompson sought out counsel at the White House, went to the White House to pitch their new streaming service that they're getting ready to roll out. And when he went back to CNN, they had an all-hands editorial meeting that he took part in. Again, he's the business side of CNN. He's not the editorial control. And he was pressuring staffers at CNN to, hey, cool it, guys, on the coverage of Donald Trump destroying the White House, literally demolishing the East Wing of the White House. Let's cool it on that. I don't think our audience really cares about that. Talk about not having your finger on the pulse of what's important to Americans. Mark Thompson is at the tip of that spear. This is the headline from Status once again. Mark Thompson's DC drop-in. CNN's chief had Washington talking about his private meeting at the White House, following which he urged the network to ease up on coverage of Trump's East Room demolition, Status has learned. This is a problem. Again, the theme of the day, I guess, is just what a shit show the current status, to use the name of this outlet, the current status of mainstream media in the United States. Whether it be Morning Joe bending the knee and kissing the ring of Donald Trump even before he took office, whether it be the different turnover of ownership at CBS or ABC, paying out millions of dollars, 15, 16 million here, contributing to the ballroom, the palace project of Donald Trump as he destroys the literal structure of our house, the people's house, the White House. We have a serious problem at hand. This is what Status reports. On Wednesday, as Donald Trump tore down the East Wing to build his ballroom, the White House had a visitor who raised eyebrows across Washington. CNN chief Mark Thompson made a rare appearance at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. If you don't know, that's the address of the White House, according to multiple people familiar with the matter. The meeting was ostensibly about introducing to the administration the network's new direct-to-consumer streaming product launching next week, laying the groundwork for officials to appear on CNN. So apparently he's just hitting the road trying to drum up some guests. But you have to do that at the White House. You can't pick up the phone or go into a text thread like Jake Tapper did the other day with his Trump interview via text message. Right. Makes a ton of sense. But given the swirl of speculation surrounding the cable network, with parent company Warner Brothers Discovery having publicly put itself up for auction, the question of Donald Trump's animosity towards CNN and how that might manifest itself in the process is very much on people's minds. The meeting could certainly have been regular business, as news networks have a vested interest in maintaining a relationship with the administration for coverage access. But people close to the situation, say Thompson and the Warner Brothers Discovery chief David Zaslav, believe it's very important for CNN to have a functional relationship with the White House. And CNN anchor Jake Tapper, who recently conducted an interview with Trump via text message, has been lobbying for an interview with the President of the United States. This is cozying up to a fascist regime. We are no longer wondering how Donald Trump is going to operate. We're no longer curious about the authoritarian nature of Donald Trump and how that's going to manifest in our lives. We're witnessing masked secret police in the streets of the United States, literally kidnapping people without due process. Citizens of America are being taken hostage and detained with no due process. They are firing weaponry, pepper balls and such, at pastors of people of the cloth who are there to protest the inhumane actions of Donald Trump's secret police, the new Gestapo in the United States. And what does CNN do? Rather than report critically, rather than report the facts on the ground, they're rushing to the White House to get closer to Donald Trump, to curry favor with Donald Trump and, likely the shadow president of the United States, Stephen Miller. Not good. Not a good look, CNN. You are trashing your reputation, and with it will come viewers. Maybe not yet. Maybe there will be a slow trickle out, a slow filing out as far as ratings are concerned and the people who trust your coverage, but it's gonna happen, because if you align yourself with fascism, you will fail. I will continue here. Such a posture is nothing new for Zaslav, who said at a 2023 media conference before Trump's re-election that Republicans are back on the air at CNN, adding that the network would become less of an advocacy outlet under new management. Less of an advocacy outlet? Is that the way the new heads of CNN see what CNN used to be, as an advocacy outlet or as a down-the-middle reporting organization, a journalistic outlet? They were not advocating for policy. They were not Fox News by any stretch of the imagination. They were not MSNBC, let's say, which is more of a left-leaning outlet. Still corporate media, absolutely. But come on, let's deal with reality on reality's terms here. Still, staffers were taken aback the next morning when Mark Thompson returned, when Thompson suggested during the Daily Network editorial call that it should ease up on covering Trump's East Wing demolition, claiming that their viewership isn't all that interested in the story, according to two people familiar with the matter. Now, it should not matter to a news organization whether people are interested in a story or not. If it's news, if it's newsworthy, if it's noteworthy, it should get reported on. What if people weren't concerned that Donald Trump dropped dead? Are they not going to report on it because people don't care? No, they would absolutely report on it because it would be news. It would be newsworthy. Again, it would be noteworthy. That's not how you run a news organization. I'm not even a journalist, and I know that. The comment struck many as bizarre coming from Thompson, who, despite carrying the editor-in-chief title, generally tends not to wade too much into the minutia of the network's editorial process. Quote, "There is zero truth to this conjecture," a CNN spokesperson told Status in a statement after the story was published. And then finally, the final paragraph here that I'm going to read, you should read this article, go check out this coverage. The guidance suggested Thompson was trying to soften CNN's coverage of Trump on an issue the administration has sought to keep out of the public view, as polls show most Americans disapprove of the action. Wait. I thought no Americans cared about the story. What do you mean polls show that Americans disapprove of it? Those two things seem to be contrary. This entire spin from the Thompson team and his staffers denying the story doesn't wash. They are liars. And if they're lying about this, what else are they lying about? If we can't trust them about this, what else can't we trust them about? I guess that's where I'll leave you. I will ask that question to you. Please let me know in the comments what you think.
Republicans, I don't know what the Democrats are doing other than publicity stunts, but I can tell you the House Republicans are doing some of the most meaningful work of their careers.
We know Mike Johnson to be a lot of things. Mike Johnson is a fake Christian. Mike Johnson is a liar. Mike Johnson is maybe at his most a gaslighter, and a bad one at that. Yesterday he gave a press conference. I guess it was just a few hours ago. I'm my last couple days in Japan here, so the time change and the shift and what time it is back home it's very confusing to say the least. But he gave this press conference and he's being asked questions and he's making statements about the government shutdown. We're in a situation right now in America where 42 million Americans are getting ready to lose access to food security benefits. And among those 42 million are millions and millions and millions of children who, by no fault of their own, are in a situation where there is food insecurity in their lives, where they wonder where they're going to get their next meal. And when the government takes away that entitlement, that help, that assistance for poor people, people suffer. Children suffer. Innocent people suffer. And Mike Johnson, instead of taking care to attend to those people the way Jesus would have him do, He blames Democrats. He acts as though Democrats are in charge of all of this. He acts like Democrats are in the majority in the House of Representatives, which is strange since he's the Speaker of the House. He acts like Democrats have the majority in the Senate, that they control the executive branch of government, that they control the judiciary. None of this is true. The Republicans are in charge. You can't have it both ways. You don't get to say the American people gave Donald Trump a mandate. They've given Congress a mandate. And then act like it's the Democrats' fault that the government is shut down. You don't get it both ways, although he wants it both ways. In this first clip, initially, or essentially, he's trying to convince America that it's Democrats who are in charge, and we are the reason, that elected Democrats are the reason that the government is shut down and is not open.
The Democrats are required to open the government. They keep saying Republicans are in charge of government. We aren't, not in the Senate. 60 votes control the Senate, not a bare majority. And so point number one, Democrat votes are required to open the government.
Get a load of that lie, that preposterous statement by this self-described Christian. It's amazing to me. There's a saying, look, I grew up in right-wing circles in evangelicalism, that, God hates the sin, but you got to love the sinner, and all of this other nonsense. But what's the other one that I'm not perfect, I'm just forgiven, all of this. Why continue to lie, knowingly lie over and over and over and over, and still think that you curry favor with your deity, with your God, in your religion, Mike Johnson? You are a knowing, wanton liar, and you continue to do so willfully, willingly, gleefully even. That statement is absolutely ridiculous. Democrats are required to open the government. They keep saying Republicans are in charge of the government. We aren't. You're not? You're not in charge of the government? You're Speaker of the House of Representatives. How did you become Speaker of the House if Republicans are not in the majority? Yeah, that's crickets. Do you hear them? Because I hear them. That's a ridiculous thing to say. It's absurd. And he knows that MAGA doesn't give a shit. Mike Johnson knows MAGA either will believe anything they're fed, they will just gobble up all of the shitty lies that he feeds them, or that they will go along with it because they know that's the narrative that needs to be spun in order to make Donald Trump victorious in his destruction of the country. There's one more clip where he's talking about getting the Congress back to work. And actually, it's unimportant that the government is shut down right now. It's unimportant that the Congress is not in session. I will remind you, the reason they are not in session right now, the reason they are in pro forma session or just out of session in general, is because they don't want to release the Epstein files, which will reveal the depravity of their dear leader. His involvement in child sex trafficking. It might prove the allegations against him that he is up to his neck relative to the raping of children. This is why they're not in business. But he would have you believe that they don't need to open up. They don't need to get back to work because they're doing the most important work of their lives while the Congress is out of session.
It's now been more than 5 weeks since the House has last met and last voted. But even during the government shutdown, House committees could still meet, there could still be markups, there could still be oversight hearings, bills could still come to the floor. So why not do that rather than have members back home in their districts? Why not bring them back here and do the work that they were elected to do?
Yeah, so we're evaluating this day by day. The House did its work. I've said it over and over and over. And the most important thing is to get the government open. It's the number one priority and number one responsibility of Congress, and the Senate Democrats have chosen not to do it. We think that is paramount and of paramount importance to everything else. There is plenty of time in the remainder of the calendar year to do all the things that are the must-pass pieces of legislation and all the negotiations that I referenced earlier today, and we are anxious to get everybody back to regular legislative session. But there cannot be a regular legislative session so long as the government is closed and Americans are feeling so much pain. We won't do that. Now, in the meantime, Republicans, I don't know what the Democrats are doing other than publicity stunts, but I can tell you the House Republicans are doing some of the most meaningful work of their careers. They are in their districts working around the clock with their constituents, helping them not only to negotiate the crisis that's been created by this Democrat shutdown, but all the other matters that they need to attend to. And I'm hearing from them individually. They are having some of the most meaningful interactions at a time of great crisis with their constituents that they've ever had. And that's really, really important. So I don't want to pull them away from that work right now when their insight and their counsel and their assistance and those of their staff, who, by the way, aren't getting paid soon, that is most essentially needed right now back home.
How are lawmakers doing the most important work? Again, their work is to make laws while out of session, while they're not passing legislation, writing legislation. What exactly are they doing to help their electorate navigate the situation where benefits are turned off, where children, 42 million Americans, and among them, again, like I just talked about, among them are tens of millions of children, are going to be hungry, are going to go hungry, are going to be without food benefits? How is the work that you're achieving, that you're doing, important at all? You're not doing anything. You're not doing work. And you see, part of this is the large problem at hand, is the fact that the Republican Party has such a disdain for government and the services that the government provides, and by virtue of that, disdain for poor and working class Americans. They don't care if you are not getting benefits. They don't care about funding the entitlement programs, the social safety net that is so necessary to so many people. They don't care. They have contempt for the poor. They have contempt for working class people. The person they don't have contempt for is Donald Trump, who they work in service to. They are high priests in the cult of Donald Trump. They do not serve Jesus the Christ. They do not adhere to the philosophies of Christianity. They adhere to MAGA. They adhere to Donald Trump and whatever he says, whether that be violations of the Constitution, whether that be literally demolishing the White House to build himself a grand palace. This is what they're in it for. That work continues, by the way, while the government is shut down. There are furious cranes working and earth movers changing the very face of the White House. And Republicans are here for it. It's disgusting. Just like Mike Johnson, just like the leadership of the Republican Party. And hopefully, there are some modicum, some number of Republicans out there who are ready to call it quits, who are seeing what is taking place and are alarmed by the party that they've been a member of for so long. Look, I'm a former Republican. Decades and decades ago, I was in the Republican Party. Early into my adulthood, realized this is not the way forward. This is not a party that cares. This is a party of hypocrites. And I, among anything else, if there's anything about me that you've learned, I'm not a hypocrite. And I hope that there are some Republicans out there that will follow suit, that will follow the path of leaving the Republican Party, even if it's to find independency and to not adhere to any party's membership. I would be fine with that. But the Republican Party needs to die a quick death. For the sake of the poor and the working class and regular everyday Americans. I invite you to this conversation. I believe is an important one. Please share this video. Make sure you're subscribed to this channel. You can do so on YouTube. Click that subscribe button. It is free. You can also go over and follow the Facebook page. Like and follow the Dollemore Daily over there. You can comment below, or you can call the voicemail line, 714-576-4054. And of course, as always, you can email me daily@dollemore.com. I love and appreciate you. I am champing at the bit to get back home, to be in my home studio, not working from a hotel room halfway across the globe, not the country. It's going to be good. I have a lot of things to say when I get home about this trip and the situation in Japan and the right-wing wayward swing that this country is taking. I've talked to a lot of people, and there's a lot of alarmed individuals on the ground here. I love and appreciate you very much. I will see you next time. Until then, be genuine and take care of one another.